Fishing trips anywhere, anytime. FishingBooker.com.
This episode is brought to you by Boat Trader, America's largest boating marketplace. Whether you're buying, selling, or upgrading, the Boat Trader app makes it easy. With the biggest selection of new and used boats from dealers and private sellers. Browse, compare, and even apply for financing. All in one place. Download the Boat Trader app and start your search today.
Habitat loss is the greatest threat to our flats fisheries. That's why Bonefish and Tarpon Trust has been committed to restoring and conserving essential fish habitat for more than 25 years. From Florida to Belize, from the Bahamas to Mexico, we're restoring natural flows, replanting mangroves, and opposing unwise coastal development. But we can't do it alone. Help us bring science to the fight for the future of the fisheries we love. Become a member today at btt.org.
Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy. Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bow Hunter Chronicles podcast, brought to you by Huntworth. Huntworth gear for all types of weather, all types of terrain, all types of budgets. It's clothing that just works. Check them out at huntworthgear.com. So this is the week for tack. So we've been out to the Muskegon Bowman's Club. They have a caribou set up at 112 yards. We've been shooting at that. John's been shooting at it. I've been shooting at it. Jake's been shooting at it. I think the Langlois boys have been shooting at it. And 3D courses all set. So in the Muskegon Bowman's Club, you can go out there if you're going to be shooting Boyne, Crystal. It's $8 for non-members, $5 for members. There's a Venmo. And you can go get your bow sighted in, figure out your distance for the 112, 111 for the caribou. And so check out the Muskegon Bowman's Club. And we're super excited for tack. We are doing our cookout once again, back like the good old days at Boyne. Going to be right there behind the practice course, right on the main walkway, Saturday night. So come find us, and really looking forward to that. Turkey season was a blank for us. Frank actually did end up, I think they killed 3 birds in 3 days with the guys that he hunts with from Ohio. But it was more about the guiding, tit for tat type thing where, he gets to go hunt in Ohio and brings those guys up here to hunt turkeys. So pretty cool. But yeah, back to archery all day long. So this week's podcast, we're talking with William Richie. He was just up hunting turkeys in the UP. William runs like 250 cameras, 275 cameras, focusing on scrapes and things like that. So we're going to talk a little bit about how he does that, what he's doing this time of year. As for him, it's whitetail 365. He does fish and some other stuff like that, but he is constantly out there grinding. So that's going to be today's podcast. Give a big shout out, give some love to our sponsors, Huntworth, Latitude. You can use code BHC, save 15%. And for every dollar spent with them in the month of June, you will get entered in to win a custom one-off face-off e-bike. So definitely check that out. And I believe that they have free shipping for June for Father's Day. So get over there, check it out. Again, that Maverick saddle, hard to beat, especially for the money. Right now, there's a 25% off at Huntworth. The code's right there on the website. I believe it's DAD25 or something like that. But you can get over there, save some money, and then also check out Kanadi and Zinger, as well as Genesis 3D. And you know that John was putting together some arrows, and he said, you know what, I'm just going to throw on the Zingers this year. They fly just fine. And he has one in the 10 ring, or in the 12 ring on the Caribou out at the Bowman's Club. So those Zingers are flying just fine for him. Definitely check them out. Save some time, save some money. Lifetime warranty. Can't say enough good things about the guys over at Kanadi and Zinger. But this podcast is going to be fun. I know you guys are going to enjoy it. And as always, thanks for listening. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Bow Hunter Chronicles podcast. And tonight we have William Richie, Billy, and we're going to talk about he was just up in the UP. Met up with me, did a little turkey hunting, and we talked trail cameras. We talked about like kind of, what he was doing up there and stuff like that. But, he's already out glassing for velvet bucks. And, we're here starting to look at like Total Archery Challenge, 3D archery, getting our bows set up. And something tells me that that's like the furthest thing from your mind. So how you doing tonight, Billy?
I'm doing pretty good. Yourself, Adam?
Good. Like I said, this week is the week of the Total Archery Challenge up in Boyne. So shooting bows, verifying sight tapes, and so on and so forth, just moving down the line. And, last night I was talking to somebody that was driving back from the HHA 3D shoot, and I was digging out my backup bow and then another bow and getting everything ready, getting arrows ready. How many bows
do you usually take with you?
I usually take 2 bows
okay.
Because, you put so much time and all that stuff. And it's great. There are the guys, you're wearing a Sunrise Archery shirt, like Derek and the boys are up there. So, Long Range is up there. Dylan's up there. So any of the guys that have problems up there, but it's just easier to,
just have a second bow.
And if you have one, you might as well, just bring that one along. So that's what I do. But we're just covered up in bows. So I'm just going through them. And like my bow has like a little crack in the limb. John says that it's okay, but all the bolts are rusted. And,
that's on that Zion you have?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. And you've seen the conditions that I like to hunt in, so
I'm surprised my Carbon Nights lasted as long. So, knock on wood, but
yeah. And like I said, John says it's fine, but when you look down and there's like a piece of the limb like this, like cracked or missing, and he's like, those are really strong limbs. Like, yeah, okay,
yeah.
So you had reached out to me, I don't even know when, long ago.
Probably like January, I would say.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm going to go up to the UP. I'm going to be headed up there to do some turkey hunting. And the schedules just didn't work out so that I was going to be able to go like with you, but we were still up there at the same time. I was kind of working on the property, and you swung by. So like, what was your motivation for like turkey hunting in the UP and like spending time in the summer in the spring in the UP?
Well, pretty much like it's 2 options. One was just so I can scout. I used it more of an excuse to go up there and scout for like a few more days than usual. And then also the other thing was the last 10 years I've drew a tag around here and shot a turkey almost in the first hour of light, and kind of just wanted to do something different. Like going up north is totally different birds, different like landscape. It's like a lot harder to find turkeys because it's like around here you could drive anywhere and there's open fields. You can find birds almost literally anywhere down here. But that's pretty much my motivation, or the 2 motivations that kept me to want to go up there and do that.
Yeah. And, so there's like very, very spotty, like little service. So the fact that like we were able to connect and you already knew like where my property was at, but like for us to be able to get together up there and like coordinate was,
it was kind of crazy that like when you called me, I actually had service to answer. Like usually I don't have any service where I was standing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the fact that we were able to connect and you were able to just
kind of like show. And I told him, I said, we may be out working, or when you came out there, I was actually trying to call some birds, trying to locate some birds. And I just walked back up, and you got to see the magnitude of like what I was dealing with ticks versus what your experience was up there.
Well, I mean, every time you looked over, you were pulling your pliers out, taking ticks off you. But like, remember what I said like a couple days ago? I think I solved your issue of why you were collecting so many and where your dad wasn't. And it was just because you weren't wearing rubber boots. And I think that was really preventing, and they just gave more for them to grab. And I think they were low in your grass. So you were, and that's why you're getting them all in your laces first, probably.
Yeah. But it was like, I couldn't take 2 steps, and it was like, oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. There's another one.
Yeah.
And then I felt so bad because our property is basically a half a mile long. We got our, talked a minute. You grabbed your gun, threw on a camel sweatshirt. We walked out to where I called in the bear, had some turkeys going. Like I called, you're like, oh, they're right there. Like they just answered back immediately. They're probably just right around the corner here. We walked another 100 yards, and it was just raining buckets, and we couldn't have been any further from the camp. I mean, it was comical, really.
Oh yeah. I mean, I haven't been that wet from a rainstorm in a long time, and that wasn't just like rain. That was literally just getting poured on. That was crazy.
Yeah, and you were just up there sleeping in your car, driving around. So I'm like, hey man, you can stay with us. I'm like,
yeah, I'm happy I did that night because of how wet we got. Like it was bad. Like that was really bad.
Yeah. And Billy, he's like, well, I don't want to impose, I don't want to wreck your trip or whatever. And it's like, I guess let's let you explain it because, I try to like explain like our camp as being like nice, but rustic, but you know what I mean?
It's a deer camp. I've always lived in and out and around deer camps just like you have. So it's kind of like, it's hard to explain a deer camp if you've never been to a deer camp. It's a deer camp. It's like, it's nice to you, but other people that have not like have any interest in that would be like, you guys are just crazy. And it's like, that's not like, that's not nice. They want luxury things. And these are luxury things to us. And that's what makes it so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, again, like to me, our camp has come far and away. Like when I first started going up there, there was no power. There was kerosene lights.
Oh, you guys definitely have the luxuries now, even though like I'm pretty dead set that you're going to have a bear one day just in the cabin. It's just going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's becoming more and more frequent. And that was what was funny is, I literally, the words didn't even get out of my mouth talking about seeing that bear or whatever. And we're driving, to the restaurant. And I've said, I've seen more bears in the last 11 months. And we come around the corner and I'm like, there's a bear in the road right there. So I don't know, but it was fun. And it was really cool, to be able to share that. Like it's hard, because it's like a family camp. You can't like, I'd love to just bring people up there and whatnot,
but not one of them things.
But it gets weird because, then when you start to do that, like, again, people who, like you said, people who've never been to a deer camp or whatever, they have different like expectations. I feel like sometimes there's like, oh, I thought there was going to be deer here. I drove 7 hours, for this or whatever. And, I think that that's like the hardest part about it because on some level, because it's what we enjoy. Like that, I feel like that gets like romanticized,
Well, I think the problem is today is there's lots of people that want to shoot some, and then there's a lot of people that didn't understand that back in the day that like this was the week or two that the men got away and they stayed that week or two up there and they didn't care if they even shot anything. 90% of them were content with just drinking and sitting around the fire and bullshit most of the time. Where now we have way more serious hunters, I think, and that's what's changing the game of why people are like, why am I going to go waste my time a week up there when I don't ever see any deer? And I think that's the difference between both situations. And that's the difference between like our generations from the older generation too.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is what making deer camp die out.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool because like, I guess kind of give like your background, like you're familiar with that area. It just wasn't like by happenstance you were in the same.
It's crazy just how that all works. So
yeah,
small world basically.
Yeah, because you grew up hunting nearby there, correct?
Probably 10 miles to the north. I mean, not very much farther from there.
Yeah,
and
so
I mean I spent like every summer up there, and as soon as I could turn 12 to come to deer camp, that I was there. So
yeah, so in talking with him like long ago, he's like, "Oh, I know." When I explain it, he's like, "Oh, I know exactly, where that's at." And then this year over the Thanksgiving when I was up there, I messaged him and I'm like, "Hey, I saw a pretty decent buck across the back side of our property," and he said, "Well, I got a camera, less than a half a mile from there. You should go check it." And it was like literally off the back of our property as the crow flies, maybe a mile, probably 3/4 of a mile, I'd say.
I mean, you had some of the same deer on that camera that would come to your guys' property, but
Yeah.
that shows you how far those deer travel in that huge between those sections, I would say, in the cuts. Because I think that's their main food source besides the little bit of ag and what there is here and there. But it's not like ag like down here. It's just hayfields, so it's not anything fancy.
Yeah. So when you're up there and you said you were using it as like another excuse to scout, I feel like my family, like my cousin and his dad had, you weren't up there when his dad got there. You'd already left, I think.
No, I was still there. He just showed up, and then he was yelling at your cousin about the power stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And
so I got in the middle of that, and I was like, "It's my time to leave." Because I feel like you're about to get a little angry.
But I think they had to pick their jaws up off the floor when you said how many cameras that you were running. So right now, how many cameras do you think you have in the woods?
I don't know. I would say probably 200. And that's like all over the place. That's just not one little place. And like to take it away, it's not like I'm just using this as like my intel. I share intel with a lot of people, like not really a lot of people, but like a lot of certain people that I know in other areas and help a lot of people out. And that's really, and a lot of the cameras too. I just like to watch wildlife and get a bunch of cool stuff. Like last year I got beavers, otters, bobcat. The only thing I have yet to get in Michigan is a mountain lion, and I know one of these days I will. So, but I mean, we get the wolves up there, the bears. But I mean, just running that amount of cameras, I mean, I do get a ton of intel on deer. But besides that, I don't know. It gives me something to do, I guess, too, and it gives me more of an excuse to be out in the woods sometimes.
So with there's having that many cameras out there, there are so many questions that guys will have, like how could you manage that? They all sell cameras, all these things. But I think what I want to focus on, because if you follow along with Billy on Instagram, like I'm starting to like pay more attention to like some of these hunters that when they post trail cam pictures or videos of their hunts and stuff. And I'm actually really noticing it on like what Painted Arrow's doing with their mounts, and they're going through and they're like doing their reaction videos to like these guys shooting these bucks. But it all ties back together. Like when I'm looking at a lot of the camera photos that you're posting, like it's all in like thick, nasty stuff, or there's lots I think what they call it is like the high stem count stuff. So like when you're choosing like where to set these cameras and when you're doing your scouting, what is it that you're focusing in on?
So like one of the main things I focus in on is definitely tracks. And like, I mean, I'll follow deer around, even bare ground, just start following them around. And like a lot of deer bring you into more deer, and it like, or deer will bring you in the sign or spots where they all like to connect with a lot more trails, like pinch points, stuff like that, like all the interesting stuff that most people should know. And then like rubs and scrapes. But like, I don't know, I'm very particular about like how I run my camera. So like there's a lot of times I'll sit there for half an hour and just sit there and look and just think about it. And then it's like, when you finally find the place you think you'll like the most, it matters like how far are you away from somewhere, as like if you're too far away from the scrape, like it's just like it's a whole combination of things, as just knowing like maybe the terrain. So like I'll walk around, like I won't just put a camera in one spot just yet until maybe I walk around the other side of the bedding area, because there could be a way better trail they're using, and there's also a way better access that I can access it, so where I'm not screwing it all up. Because like that's something I've noticed too, like a lot more on some of my cameras in certain areas, is that as soon as there's like another human intrusion, it's over with. They won't handle it there anymore. And I think it's just they know that if that human intrusion comes in, they've had to had like a bad situation there at some point, or a deer has probably died there, and it's just something they know that if they smell a human there. But that's why I'm running cameras, like, and I'll run cameras all year round, is because I just try to keep man, I am just losing my train of thought for no reason. I don't even know why. It's just because it's like such a complicated answer.
Well, yeah. So that's, but I think we can go way back into like one of those things. Like, so when you find an area that you want to set a camera, it doesn't sound like you're focusing in on like, I guess we'll put it this way. Like when I go in and I look and I'm like, okay, I will find like some intersections or some trails or something like that, or maybe I'll find a scrape. But I feel like every time I put a camera on a scrape, I get other hunters, I get all this other stuff, because that's what people are looking at. So I try to figure out, at least in when I go in, I look for like those trail intersections where I'm just going to get high volume movement, because I'm not necessarily trying to hunt exactly on that spot. Maybe I'm just trying to see like what's in the area, where you're looking at a whole area and saying like, what's the best particular spot to get in and out of here where I can get the same amount of the pictures of what I'm looking for. That's kind of what I'm getting.
I basically try to find like the cleanest spot where it looks like the deer will pinch down the most, the tightest. And it's usually the cleanest spot I can run a camera to, where like I'm not intruding on anything, or if I am, they don't care. They just won't care at all. Like, and it's just given me inventory to where like me knowing that whole entire area, there'll be a better scrape somewhere else, but I won't put a camera on it, because like sometimes people don't even see the scrape, but they'll see your camera and then they'll see the scrape. And it's just a magnet. But where if they see your camera on the side of the road on a scrape, they're going to be like, whatever. And someone might come check it out, but the deer also won't get all freaked out about it too. And that could be like the thickest spot on the side of a road too. And a lot of people overlook a lot of that. Surprisingly, as like many people say they look for overlooked spots, but there's many times that I've come into those like real, and that's why I got lots of pictures where it looks like just thick, nasty, like whatever. But all that is maybe half an acre right there next to the road. That's all it is most of the time. And it's somewhere where I can just like steal photos. That's basically the best way to say it, is the deer have no idea, or they just don't care.
And do you think that that's because it's like so close to like normal, I don't want to say
traffic?
Like human, yeah.
That's basically what I feel like I'm getting. I'm basically just getting away with it is all I'm doing. But also having the chance of, if you're doing it like that, you also have a lot of chance of having theft too. So that's why a lot of my cameras are really high, and I run the paracord on them so you can't see them.
Yeah, and so that's one thing, so when I went and grabbed the one camera that you had out, it was maybe, I don't know, it was less than 100 yards from the road, I think, and it was probably 200 or 300 yards from like the parking area. And I had a pin, and it took me a minute to find it. And then when I did, you know, I'm like, it has to be right here. And I'm just looking around, and that damn thing's staring me right in the face. And I think that paracord or running like wire or whatever, I do think that the straps probably give them away more than we realize, you know.
90% of the time, most cameras I find, they have the regular strap on them, and that's the first thing I see is the strap or a cable if they're locked. And I mean, it's just a straight magnet for somebody to see your camera, and that's using paracord. I don't really get too much theft, but most of the theft I get now is not even theft. People just been shooting the cameras off the tree. They don't even look at them or nothing. They just take the gun and shoot them. So gun season's pretty much a war to your cameras, especially in southern Michigan. Let's put it that way.
Explore historic waterways in 2025 with Scenic on the most inclusive cruise on Europe's rivers. Enjoy up to 5 dining experiences, spacious suites, and butler service. Be immersed in the culture with enriching free choice excursions and exclusive events. Scenic, in a class of its own. Book now and save.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
And so you're not, with that many cameras, you obviously can't be pulling them and checking them. Like, what is your quote unquote schedule, or how do you
I go like 3 to 6 months, and it matters like growth too. So like I like exchanged and put 10 to 20 cameras just before turkey season started. And that's just, honestly, I was just following the turkeys around, messing around and seeing what deer have maybe moved to what area or not, or if there's something I've noticed something different, just something to do. And I've noticed that like now those cameras I've pulled, it's good I've pulled them. It's because like this was before green up and now it's greened up, and like I would have just ran thousands of photos of nothing. And that's why thankfully I've changed them, or I've put them up higher, or I've changed where I wanted to put them, is just because of that reason right there.
And so now at like this time of year, you were up there doing some scouting. You're posting videos of, your first like velvet pictures. Like, what are you doing right now for this upcoming season? Like when you're finding these velvet deer, like whatever, what is your like mindset, throughout the summer when it comes to deer?
Like right now I'm not really just like, I'm just looking for the bigger bachelor groups and what the food's going to be, especially like down here in southern Michigan. I'm looking at like where the beans are, where the corn's going to be, because pretty much almost every farmer right now should have his stuff planted. And like, I would say towards the end of July, you're going to start getting a lot of those big deer on that, on those bean fields, especially down here. And then like, you want to know where the corn's at, so you're not wasting too much time driving around a section that has just straight corn for miles, because then you're just wasting gas and time, unless you have to go by it to go from field to field to field to glass. But like right now I'm looking at like where the food's sitting, and then also like yesterday I went and looked to see if there was a good bachelor group into that one field that I knew that was beans or was planted beans, because I seen it sprouted like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. As soon as we got those like first big rains, it sprouted pretty good. And when I went over there, I actually seen the bachelor group of bucks. They actually came from a big private little island thing and come over to into the public field and ate. And that's how I got a bunch of film of those ones. But it was just knowing that there's like a bunch of deer coming there already, and they're getting that fresh growth. So they're like eating the beans before they can even get grown. But besides that, like, that's pretty much all I've been doing. If I'm going to drive in glass and look for deer, is I'm just going to see where the food's at. Mostly I'm right now, because I mean, like, you can kind of tell what's going to be a bigger deer or not, especially with the body size and maybe what they got on their head somewhat, but you'll never know anything until probably July. And they'll have full main beams at least then, or more.
So I'm just trying to like process this, because I've got, I've seen some pictures already of some pretty decent bachelor groups that have some big growth on them. So let's say that you get that. Let's say that you got a cell cam out and you're getting these deer going through there at this time of year. Like, how does that? What are you tracking throughout the year? Are you like right now trying to find the deer that you want to kill, or are you just trying to find areas that are holding big deer?
I'm pretty much on the search of who's made it through, but like, I got to figure out where they're like bedding or like what food source they're hitting, because like every year everything gets planted. So like some of these deer could be 5 miles down the road on a whole other food source, but then they'll come back to that winter range. But where I glass them over the summer could be 5 miles away, because that could be the only set of beans or fresh cut wheat. So like when they cut the wheat after it dries, it'll grow a little grass in it. And that's why the geese hunters or goose hunters hunt it really hard, is because those geese come in there and there's a bunch of fresh growth and the little grass, but the deer like it too. And that's why you'll catch them in those winter wheat fields, or not winter wheat, but just the regular wheat. Whatever you call it. I can't think of what the name of it is, but they're like tanned fields after they cut it. And then you'll see a little bit of green in it, but it's kind of like I'm just getting like an inventory, and also an inventory on newer bucks that like could be alive, that could have a possibility. And I don't film anything deer wise unless they're somewhat within like the mile square, or like within squares of the public, or in between public to where I can have a chance of it. So like, I'm not going to go 25 miles into desolate private and film somebody's deer, because like those are deer that'll never move. But a lot of any deer on any public anywhere in Michigan, I've noticed that is they'll move around with the food, because that's like how their life is, because all the public is desolate land most of the time anyways. It's just swamps and stuff. So like the food is all the way around it. But if the half quarter of the marsh or the 5 miles of the marsh on one side is all corn, you ain't going to see no deer over there. I mean, you're going to see deer over there, but you're not going to see deer over there visually and glass them. So that's why you're going to have to find the open fields with where there's that wheat or grass or hay or beans. I mean, even flower fields or a sunflower field. If you can find a sunflower field and it's like close to something, that could be a major magnet. But I mean, we don't really get too much of that here. So, but anything fresh growth. And then like, if you walk anything perimeter of any public and you can't figure out where the deer are coming in and out in each field, just go walk the perimeter of it, and you can see where they've literally, you can see where all the tops of the buds of everything's been chewed off, and you'll see the beat trail where they're coming in and out to go between the private and public fields, or into a public field, or something hidden that you can't even glass. That's another way I'll run my cameras over the summer too, is that won't put it right on the fence line, but I'll put it like 30 yards off to where you'll catch them where they'll stop. And a lot of those deer will actually stop and look at that fence line, because they're taking a look at the field before they enter it, or they're getting that thermal off the edge of the field with the wind too. And that's where you'll catch a lot of them with a camera right there too, if you want summer intel on like a hidden field, because like you can't sneak into every field because you'll blow it all out a lot. So, and you don't want to just keep blowing the deer out of places too.
So, like in that scenario, though, how does that translate into like the hunting season? Because, I mean, I'm thinking of one field in particular that has, sometimes it's all corn. Most of the time it's corn, or I've seen it be pumpkins too. And it's butted up to public. I mean, right, the property line is public, but it's like as soon as you start to go in there, like during hunting season, that's like every Tom, Dick, and Harry's got a tree stand in there, and you've got tacks and ribbons and freaking bottles and everything going in there. So, like, how does that information that you're getting there relate into the hunting season, or how do you adjust to that?
So, like, I can give you a couple of good examples. So, like, a good example is, like, take, like, we'll just draw a giant square, and the square is your public land. And then all around that square is all your private, which could be, like, fields, food, all sort of stuff. So, you say on the north corner of one part of that square, you turned around and you filmed 5 good bucks over there, and that's where all the deer have been hanging, because that's the food source they want to hit towards the end of July or like the beginning of August. And like sometimes they'll hit these beans and stuff for a couple of weeks, but then they'll keep moving around if there's other food sources in the section, or if, say, like every dicky mow over there is in the corner over there and filming those deer every night or glassing them, they're not going to come out until after dark, or they're going to go to another bean field down the road because it's just too much harassment. But like, what I'm doing is I'm taking inventory of these bigger deer, or what as mature deer. So like, say there's 20 bucks in a section, but only 5 of them are big mature deer, or deer that I'd really want to chase. So those 5 deer, that gives me 5 more chances out of 20 deer that I'm not going to shoot, that I'm going to try to go after. But the thing is that section that is such like that square, it's not tillable land. It's not easy. It's like marsh or swamp, or it's like huge hill incline where it's like where the easy spots where you'll find people, but where you won't find people is where you're going to find those deer. And like that, it's like it gives you a drawing board, but you're still going to have to hunt. So it's like, and that's where some of the cameras come in use. So like you have 4 scrapes in each 4 corners. So like once September or October rolls around, when those deer shift, those deer aren't going to leave that desolate area, especially maybe, I don't know, you could probably lose half of them, but you're not going to lose every single one of them, because if that mature deer has grown up in that section his whole life, why is he going to leave? He knows how to beat everybody there. You just got to figure out how he beat everybody. And that's where, like, knowing where you have a scrape in each corner, he comes and hits that scrape, and then you're like, well, there's only 10 bedding areas within this time frame. He can only be like so far away, and it's just you're hunting him down now. I'm not running no more cameras anymore. I don't care about checking anything. It's just you got to hunt them down after that. But that's how I'm using the cameras, and that's like the best, cleanest example I can give you of how I'm doing it. Besides, like, if you got small sections of public, like, sometimes you just get lucky and people just don't go there. They just don't until mid-season or the rut, or they don't show up there until like gun season. And I mean, that's the good part about hunting southern Michigan, is that there's so many fields and so much like public mixed in and out in places that like people think it's hard, but it's really not. It just, those deer get moved around, and a lot of the sections, it all connects together as one giant section to where the deer could be.
Yeah, I think I love that, the way that you like laid that out, because it makes sense. It makes a ton of sense on a whole bunch of levels. Like, one, the fact that, you know, I think we think about like people running cameras, and especially now with like cell cameras and stuff like that, people are just trying to hunt where they put that camera. And the fact that you said, like, once I get those pictures, like once I verified that he's in there, like, I don't really care about the cameras anymore. I'm going to go in there, boots on the ground, and figure it out. And then, you know, I think that I met you through like Jason Campbell, and that's like his thing, at least in my eyes, is the one thing that he's always preached that really stuck out in my head was like, you need to pick a section and like learn every nook and cranny of it. So you like you said, like maybe there's 10 bedding areas in here. And
him and I had a very like big discussion about that. And the biggest discussion is that it should take everybody about 3 years to really learn a section, to where you should have an idea of where the deer are. and like an idea of where there's bedding areas. I mean, you might not know every crook and cranny of every piece, but you should have. If you live there and that's your main piece you like to hunt, there's no reason why you shouldn't know it like the back of your hand, like it's nothing. Like I'm in the middle of thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of public land, just like how you are to the north of me, and I'm knowing so much of it, and it's just because of that reason. Because at any time and at any place, I can put the eyes on the deer of a lifetime that I've been looking for forever, and I want to know like how I'm going to hunt them. I'm not going to be like second guessing it, and I haven't had it happen yet, but I'm hoping, and that's like I just don't want to like dick around when it comes to knowing, and it's like what I don't understand, and like people don't like, I don't get why people don't go this way at it as is. But like learn the section you're going to hunt, but then also grow as a hunter and like learn a little bit more every year at somewhere else. Like you don't have to do it like completely at all at once, but also you got to have sit time at somewhere where you know and you have confidence. Just hopping around, you lose your confidence unless you're not putting your eyes on like the deer you want to see. And that's why like putting that time in that like in the section though, and learning little bits of more and more of it, you're going to figure out where the deer are going to want to be. And you can go right to that section right away and know exactly like one of the 3 spots where that deer could be, or 5 spots. And the best part is a lot of those places is probably 2 out of the 3 you can see and know which one he's going to be at, and then just go be there the next night.
Yeah. You're like,
I get really talkative and I go off on a rant.
Oh, no. What I was going to say is like, you're like you got my mind like reeling about like everything I've ever done wrong as far as hunting is concerned.
That's the problem. There's no such thing as doing anything wrong. You're literally, I don't understand why people hate on each other so much about, and I'm not saying you, but like, people hate on each other because you think you're doing something wrong. The only way you're going to learn anything is by doing something wrong. If I told you or anybody else the amount of deer I've wounded or like screwed up on, or like what in the world was I thinking, it'd be unbelievable. Like I couldn't even explain it. Like, but that's how I've learned. That's how I've gotten where I've gotten, is because I have screwed it up more times than ever. And I've done all the dumb moves you could ever think, but it's like, just take a step back and take a big deep breath and think about what you're doing wrong and why you're not seeing deer. And why, like you're hunting an animal that's like in its own atmosphere. You're only there 3 months out of the year, unless you're like me, where I just pretty much live in the freaking woods for some stupid reason.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that like I think a better way to put it is like how like ADD or like inefficient I am with like tactics. And like people will say to me like, hey, I think, like my friends will be like, I think you can kill bigger bucks. Like you've shown that you can figure this stuff out. Like you should be able to do this. Like if you put in some time, like you could do this. And for me, I look at things like on a macro level instead of like a micro level, like you're talking about. So I look at like, okay, here's the wind, here's the bedding area, here's, where there should be food, like somewhere in there should be the deer, instead of looking at like all the minutia. And like, what's been wild to me, and it was like most apparent with, you and I both hunted with Joe Davis down in Indiana, like 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. It was but 2023.
Yeah. But the first year he came up to the Patreon hunt, he just went and he was on deer like immediately. But what he did, and what a lot of the guys that came up there to the hunt did, is they focused on ag, and they were like, well, I'm going to try to, like you said, kind of go the perimeter of these ag fields and find where there's big runways or big sign coming out. And then I'm going to sit here. And in hunting up there, the 5 years prior, whenever I had hunted up there, I was never, even with Frank, like never, ever focused on ag, anything. It would be like acorns or anything like that. Like when I started the podcast, like prior to that, I don't think I had ever in my life outside of like the hunting channel, like heard anybody talk about like glassing the beans or like beans being king, like early season. Like never heard it, never even like at any point like on my radar. And so like to hear you talk about like how big of a factor, and again, like doing the podcast and starting, and everybody was talking about like these bedding areas. Like I can pick out like topographical stuff, like where deer should be bedded. And I've hunted it enough in different terrains to be able to figure it out, you know?
The takeaway from that real quick is that like your summer bedding 90% of the time is they're it's in a, where tall grass is, where that grass is dead by fall comes. I don't know how many times I've kicked big bucks out of just grass that's where like a big tree overhangs. And it's just because that's what's next to the field and close. And they feel safe, but there's no danger right now.
Yeah. And like I say, like that was like, okay, well, this is bedding. Like, you know, everybody, I think, you know, who came in around the same time as I did is like, you know, with the Dan Infalts and that sort of like the bee style hunting. And then you get into like hill country bedding and the Jake Bush stuff with scrapes and all that stuff. And so for me, again, that falls on like the macro level. Like I just have to like see these things, go in there, verify that they're there. And then it's just like a waiting game, or like, you know, it is luck, but you can go in there and, you know, go in on the right wind with the right conditions, and you have an active scrape, or you have, you know, fresh tracks, or, you know, you've seen deer moving, and it's like the rut time of year or whatever. There's going to be deer there, you know, but I've never like looked at it from the perspective like that you're talking about, where you're like breaking down like essentially like a deer's ecosystem, right? I mean,
okay. I guess if you want to explain it that way. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out where they want to be when they want to be.
Right. And that's the thing is like, I feel like guys will say, well,
oh my God, it's the coolest thing ever. Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? Well, check this out. It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. Seriously. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
Choice Hotels gets you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like these road trippers making waffles and eating fresh fruit in their natural habitat. The breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. I just love seeing a vacation maximized in the wild. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
This episode is brought to you by SelectQuote. Life insurance can have a huge impact on our family's future. With SelectQuote, getting covered with the right policy for you is simple and affordable. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents will tailor your experience to find a life insurance policy for your needs in as little as 15 minutes. And SelectQuote partners with carriers that provide policies for many conditions. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Go to selectquote.com/SpotifyPod today to get started.
You can't hunt deer when it's best for you. You have to do it when it's best for the deer. And that's essentially what you just said, is like, you know, where the deer want to be when they want to be there. And again, it's just like so far out of left field for me from that like whole approach. So I think this year going forward, I think I'm going to try to maybe adopt that some more and like pick out one of these areas that I've hunted that I either know pretty well or I want to get to know more, and kind of focus on maybe one or two areas to like learn kind of more intimately, I guess. My
first advice is that if you've never been there, just go drive the whole thing around. Like any road that perimeters the whole area, just go drive it and see what you see. That could give you like a huge example on what's as food, like sign. I mean, you could turn around and be driving down the backside and see somebody's yard and just see a whole line of just monster rubs. Then you know there's definitely something going on there, and how close is the public to that property and how that all works. And why would that deer be coming and going from there into there? I mean, there's just lots of ways you can do things with just driving around the first time and trying to figure it all out. I mean, you could drive around the backside and there'll be 10 of those redneck blinds all around the whole perimeter around the backside, but you would have never known it if you didn't drive it.
So, especially like where you're at in southern Michigan and things like that, how do you deal with like pressure, like other hunters, other hunter sign, other tree stands? Like, how does that enter into like your decision making as far as like where to sit, when to sit, or just to leave and go to a different area?
Well, basically, like, there's tree stands everywhere. You can't walk anywhere without there being a tree stand somewhere. So the only way I really do it is I'll rate it on seeing how much garbage or how fresh the tree stand is, or how, like, if it's super fresh, a lot of times they've cut stuff, or like you could tell the straps have, like, they're brand new. Like, the sticks will be kind of loose still from somebody tightening it. Like, I don't mess with anybody's stuff, but like you could tell when somebody just put something out there. And then a lot of times you could tell when nobody's hunted it and it has been hunted in years, or it just hasn't been hunted that year. Maybe it's somebody's gun season stand that they just leave up, which, I mean, you're not supposed to do any of that, but people just leave stands everywhere. And like, if you're taking it away that you see somebody else's stand and you're not going to hunt there and the deer sign's there, hunt it. Like, it's first come, first serve on the public. Nobody owns any spot. And I usually just, if there's somebody there in the parking lot, I'll drive by and go around somewhere else most of the time. Or if it's really something I'm after, I try to avoid anybody. But like, it's just with the stand situation, you got to just rate it on like your own thinking. If you think somebody's going to show up there at 5:30, the last half an hour light like they usually do, I probably wouldn't hunt there. But as like pressure wise, like pressure could be good because that's going to like really figure out where the deer are going to be. Because like if some 10 dudes come into a section and they hunt their same stand every single night, where are they not hunting? And where they're not hunting pretty much most of the time is where the deer are. Even if there is a stand there or not, they're just not, if they haven't hunted it at all or it's not theirs or whatever, it doesn't matter. The deer don't care. I mean, the deer don't care about any of it. They just want to know how much human intrusion there has been in somewhere they want to be.
Now, a lot of your stuff, I guess that you put out, the camera videos, the trail camera stuff like that, is on these like community scrapes or hub scrapes. Where are you finding those? I mean, are you one of these guys who just canvasses the whole thing and, you know, you've already said that you want to know the entire area until you track down, or are you looking on a map and say, and I think we've talked about this, but you go and say on the map right here, there's going to be a scrape or a community scrape. And then that's how you're locating these.
It's kind of like both. So like if I can look at a map and look at terrain and how it funnels through, or like I can see like the hard transition lines, most of the time now I can tell exactly where it's at. But if it's doesn't show absolutely nothing on a map, yeah, I'll canvas the area, or at least canvas all the transition lines or where different types of terrain come in. Because like most of the time those deer are going to put a scrape somewhere where there's multiple terrains coming in. And that's just because like there could be pines with a marsh to where there's a damn hiking trail somewhere with a creek next to it. And there's literally like could be autumn olive between the hiking trail and like those 3 points of things. And that's just like high stem count brush. But the thing is people are not going out of their way to look maybe right there in that exact spot. And that's where those monster scrapes will be, because those deer are using it. That's like where they're coming in and out of and moving to go from maybe another section to another, or like to the other half of the section where the food's at. but they're using bedding like on the north side instead of the south side, but you're catching them on the north side on that scrape. And that's why those people are not seeing it, because like they're going to run their cameras on where the food is, or where there's like the edge of the field, like where the normal typical giant scrape will be, or where somebody set up a scrape. I mean, there's lots of things that could vary, but those are the things that I try to find, is where it's just the little hidden scrape off to the side. And most of the time, you're not going to get almost every single buck in the section, but if you can find the right one, you'll get every buck in the section. And at some point within the 5 days that you're trying to hunt them, or you have your chance, he'll come and hit that scrape, usually if you time it out right. And this is years and years and years and years of doing this now, of figuring that out. And that's not just like an overnight thing, because like you could find your typical community scrapes that everybody finds, but these are just, it's like a hard transition scrape is what I'm best way to describe what I'm really looking for. Because I won't run on just any scrape, because like those deer will come through, especially if you got a lot of deer in an area, they'll come through and they'll scrape almost anything and everything overhanged. But it's the one scrape that's got the most big tracks in it. It's dug out. It's got roots showing. It's like, it smells. You can smell it. And it's on a hard transition. That's the scrape you want. Most of the time, every single one of those deer are going to come and hit it. The does, the fawns, all of them. But it's also hitting too. It's not in just like your typical area you're going to look. But it's like, if you look at a map and start noticing them in those transitions where it all comes together like that, you'll start noticing it more and more, and it's everywhere. And it's always like the best scrape too, most of the time, because it's a scrape you could come in and hunt. Because there's other terrains, like a lot of them, like there's wood duck ponds and little potholes and stuff like that. I can use that wood duck pond to my advantage to come right across and come up and sit right on top of the scrape. And they have no idea I even came there or was there, because their bedding's just off to the side right there, or it's a little over, but they have literally no idea I'm even there. And that's because it's a scrape right in the middle of the hard transition of a couple terrains right there. And that's the first thing they're going to hit right out of bedding most of the time too.
And so this is going to be like a little bit of a different type of question, because, you know, we're generally always thinking about like bow season and things like that. But I feel like you're more of like a pure like Michigan deer hunter. Like you're like, I'm going to shoot them with a gun, a muzzleloader.
Oh yeah, I don't care.
Bow.
Whatever you want to give me as weapon wise.
Yeah. So, in that, like, what is your like time frame? Because like, you know, because you're saying, you know, year over year, like watching these scrapes and things like that. Because I know where there's a scrape. I don't know that it's like as active as it used to be. For like 2 years, I had deer on it like crazy, like all like right at the beginning and into like the first couple days of gun season. Like there was like 3 years where there was a, you know, decent 115, 120 inch buck opening morning of gun season in this scrape, like for 3 years in a row, different deer, but same caliber. And it was every buck in the section was coming through there. But it was, I always just kind of overlooked it, like A, because it was gun season, but B, because I felt like it was just like too late in the season. Like I don't like to mess around that week before gun season, or like, especially the first couple of days before gun season, just simply because I feel like that's when all of the, like the Dickie Mows, that's when all of the like guys are going and prepping their spots for the first time that year, you know?
My question is for you is how much doe bedding is around that area?
Quite a bit. Like it.
That's why right there. That they're just there because the does are there. So like when so even when gun season starts, I'm hunting like very secure doe bedding areas where the does feel safe. They're not getting bumped up by gun hunters. Nobody's walked through there yet, at least. And like even thinking about like that question, like last year there was a spot, I think it was the 18th or the 19th of November. like all year I have had deer on there, but it was like that's when the big deer decided they were going to show up there and chase the does around in that section. And I think a lot of it had too because there wasn't a bunch of people hunting over there. They were hunting more to the north than where they really wanted to hunt in that section, and that could have a lot to do with it. But if you have a lot of does in the area, I mean, that could be a lot of the possibilities. They came in there because that was his time to come over there because he already bred his does on his side of the fence in the first part of November. That's the way I look at it as. And that's why we'll have a bunch of different deer I've never even seen trickle into the public in like mid-November. Like last year, I had a couple deer I've never even seen ever before show up. And it was because they come from miles away because on their side of the fence, they bred their does. Or they got their butt kicked and they're over there now for a minute. But they'll only come for like a week. And yet again, this is like going back years and years of having inventory of understanding why those deer want to be there. And so, like a lot of this I'll write down of where and when that scrape should pick up. So like a lot of times I won't even go run a camera on some of these scrapes until like probably 3 weeks prior or a month prior to where I know when it's going to actually heat up. Just so I'm leaving my scent, or I'll take my dog with me and act like I'm just some lost hiking fool and set the camera up. And the deer won't even pay attention to it because they're used to seeing coon hunters and people running dogs and just crap like that. So it doesn't affect the deer. I mean, that's a very easy tip to get away with it if you have a bunch of coon hunters in your area.
So for guys who are like, again, like just starting out right now and they're saying, okay, I'm going to go like, I guess, you know, you could use me as an example and say, okay, this is going to be my year that I'm going to shoot. You know, I'm going to try to focus in on finding a big deer to kill, and, you know, whatever that caliber of deer is, you know, doesn't really matter. But walk us through like what we or I should be doing from now until October 1st when the season starts.
So I would recommend you to go drive around first and try to get like you got to feel comfortable with knowing like the square of section you're going to hunt first to begin with. You want to be able to be like, okay, well, if I go left, I go this way, or I go right, I go this way. I know which way, and then I know all the public parking lots like that. That could be a very dead given, or all your access to. Because, like, if you could find all the access points and say, like, you have 10 access points, but this section's, like, 5,000 acres big, or, like, just a big 5,000 acre chunk, but you have 10 access points around it, but then you're looking at your access points, and you notice there's, like, a couple creeks or something run through it. Go check what the creeks are doing, because if the creek's big enough, you can use the creek to sneak down, or even if the creek's small enough and you can wade it with rubber boots on or hip boots, that's another way you can access in spots to where people are not going to be doing that. They won't. A lot of people don't think out of the box like that because they're think, oh, I'm going to park in the parking lot and then I'm going to walk down the trail, and then if I walk in from the trail, it'll be all right. Even though that's not all right most of the time, because a lot of these people aren't like thinking about how the wind works and how the wind will come across, and like not going around to where you're not blowing all your wind into the bedding area so the deer know you're there already. So like if you came through on a backside, but it's just, you want to know how your section works, how your access works. And then also, I mean, like looking on a map, you already will have waypoints on where you're going to figure out what you want to go look at, where the deer might be, where people might be, where you want to set up stand spots or have ideas so you're not going in there completely blind, because this is a place that it feels like home, and it should feel like home. Like it's like you're putting your chairs over there, your bed's over there, like you know it like the deer know it, kind of, if that makes any sense. So you know and understand that, like, well, if my friends come over here and destroy all these tables, like nobody's going to sit over there, so why would I go over there?
Okay. And so that now you've got that lay of the land. How far away are you, like you said, like canvassing the area for, like, let's say that, 5 miles away on either side, there's big green fields. Is that close enough at this time of year that those deer could be living in there in October? Like, how far is how big of a net are you casting on an area that you want to hunt?
It really matters the area, honestly. Like, if you got, so your public land is a 15-mile marsh, you got a whole lot of area to canvas there. It could be anywhere, I would say like 2 miles out off the public, because your roads and houses can split that really huge too. But I mean, like, for a deer to walk a mile is nothing, like 2 minutes for them, or a minute if they ran it probably. But like, I mean, it's hard to explain it without showing it like on a map of like, oh, I look there, and there, because that's where those deer are going to be over the summer. But then like, what's funny is that like your property in the UP, for example, is that like the reason why I think I was getting some of those deer on that camera that you'd get on the property is because there was a cut all the way to the west there that they just cut. And it's just like, those are the things that I think about, is that like, well, if you have the edge of your square and there's corn all the way here, but then like across the street, there's a bean field, but it's like hidden way around the corner there. That's where a lot of those big deer might stick it out for the summer. But it doesn't mean that they're going to stay there the whole entire time. Because the funny thing about it is that, so what if they stayed there all summer, but you could have the guy or the farmer there, they're there every weekend. They're out there cutting wood every weekend, but the deer are tolerating it because it's summertime. But like, once they get that shift, they're like, why do I need to be here? This guy drives in and out of his property every single day. Or they feel safe. One of the two. I mean, but I know like a lot of that like intrusion pushes them around. Like, they won't use a bean field anymore because they just keep getting watched or glassed, or a guy keeps coming in and out of there and kicking them out of there every time. So they're not using it until after night, but they're not going to stick around forever for that. And then eventually they spread out. But like, the good parts about having public that is planted, or having private that backs up the public, is that those deer, that's like home to them. Even if it is a mile away that they have to go to another field to feed for a couple weeks, they'll still come back to the public, because like, say September, when the acorns start dropping, that changes like the whole entire game up altogether. And that's what really could draw them in, is that if you have a ton of oaks on your public, I mean, you're pretty much gold when it comes October and all that comes through there, as long as you have oaks dropping. And it's because like the bean fields and the field deal and all that it's just summertime glassing and inventory. It's not really like, oh, those deer are using this field and I'm guaranteed, because like, we start way too late to guarantee to try to hunt them on a field. It's just too hard. Unless you're hunting the youth hunt. And I mean, that's nothing to take away from the kids, but I mean, that's what the great part about taking the kids out there is, that you can have the opportunity and they can see a ton of deer on a green bean field, where we don't get that chance. But I mean, I'm okay with it. But you got to hunt the hardier food sources. And that's probably why you learned the way you did, hunting them over acorns and stuff. It's because that's what they were doing at that time of year. They weren't hunting bean fields. The Outdoor Channel kind of screwed that one up, with all the real tree guys and everybody that did like, and it's not to take away from them, but it's just that a normal person doesn't hunt deer over a field every single day. Usually it's usually in the woods.
Well, and I mean, you've been on our property, and the first, we've done food plots maybe for like the last 5 or 6 years. And that's not the majority of our property, even though there's food plots. Like, that's not where the majority of the property by any stretch of the imagination. And that's not what like the hunting is up there, and that I think is why, like say, I just view things as like going to hunt deer on a different level. So like, all of this has been great information and things that like, I feel like doesn't really get brought up as much because we want to focus on those again, like, oh, this is where the hub scrape is, this is where bedding is, this is where this is, and not like you said, like getting in there and just hunting these deer down.
Yeah. And I think people put too much, like, they rely too much on technology when it's a game you're playing with another animal that he doesn't have technology. He doesn't care about that. He just cares about food and women eventually at some point.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
This episode is brought to you by Max. The HBO original comedy special, Gerard Carmichael, Don't Be Gay, is now streaming on Max. Emmy-winning comedian Gerard Carmichael returns to the stage in his boldest special yet, bringing his sharp wit, unfiltered honesty, and the kind of vulnerability that's made his voice truly one of a kind. Don't miss Gerard Carmichael, Don't Be Gay. Now streaming on Max.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Yeah. And again, like for us, we want to make, and I think it's Zach Fehrenbaugh who says it. He's like, they're just stupid animals, and we give them way too much credit.
They're simple, and they just smart with what they have as instincts, as like their nose and ears and stuff.
Well, I mean, they don't have too many jobs. Their jobs are like to reproduce and stay alive. Like that's kind of it. Right?
The simplest you can get.
So I do think sometimes like we overcomplicate it, but I think that's why, like for myself, is like I'm always like, well, I can go out and find a deer, but I don't I have yet to like dive so far down that path of like learning everything there is to know about everything. And I don't know. I think maybe that's something that I need to kind of try to implement this year. And kind of set maybe like a little bit higher goal for myself. Like last year, I had a goal of killing 3 bucks, like 2 in Michigan, 1 out of state. And I killed 2 bucks. I just didn't kill the third one. I shot at another one. And so I felt like kind of validated in that. And so this year, I think it's like I just have to like make it a point to like increase the caliber of buck that I'm gonna shoot.
Yeah.
So
you just got to make a goal for yourself, and that's everybody.
Yeah, and you know, last year was different because I was doing it with the trad bow, and I mean, I feel very accomplished in doing so. So this year, I think maybe that, and I had already been thinking about this a little bit. Like that's what I need to do. And I think I've already said it. It's like, I guess I'll just have to shoot a whole bunch of does and just wait for the right buck.
Gonna have to, I guess.
But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on and kind of going through some of this stuff. And like I said, a lot of that and things that we talked about are things that I've not ever really heard or had been discussed like in that manner. So
the problem is a lot of it is very like complicated questions as like how to answer it, because you can answer it more than like one way. There's more ways to skin a cat than you can ever explain.
Yeah. And you know, everything, and this is what I've run into with a lot of these like higher level deer hunters. And I guess I would just say maybe you're like legitimate like woodsman. Like it's hard to explain to somebody who isn't in the woods all the time or doesn't have the same like experiences about what it is that you're looking for. Because if you've done it enough and you just keep showing up and you start to see these patterns, well, it just becomes second nature. And so it is hard to explain. And that's why these higher level deer hunters, like not unlike yourself, try to figure out like the situation, because every situation when you're dealing with these bigger deer is completely different.
Yeah, pretty much almost every situation is. I mean, you got to be an opportunist, and an opportunist on his mistakes if you're really trying to figure out what he's doing.
Right. So with you, what do you got going on? You're doing some filming, you're doing some YouTube stuff. Like, what do you got going on?
I mean, I'm trying to like get more motivated to use YouTube and maybe share a lot more. And it's a very long process, and it's a very long process to share because it's like I'm a very busy person, and it's like I kind of like to fly underneath the radar, but at the same time, it's kind of nice to share because it does help some people, and it's nice to share like some of my adventures and like what I like to do. But it's just, I don't know, it's not really a major priority, I guess, but it can be at sometimes.
Okay. So if people wanted to follow along with you, like where do they find you, like on Instagram? And if you've got anything up on YouTube, like where would they find that stuff?
So on Instagram, it'll be DDHunter12. And then my YouTube is Michigan Dreamin' TV. And then it'll be literally just Michigan Dreamin', just spelled just like that.
Okay. Awesome, man. Well, I'm looking forward to this season, and I'm hoping we'll have to get together and do some scouting, because I would like to see how you look at some of the areas.
Yeah, anytime.
I know, and that's the thing is, like, you know, Billy has been like super gracious, and this is not like recent. It's from like day one. He's like, hey man, like I can put you on deer. I can give you, you know, pins, like I can show you all this stuff. Like I've got deer that you can kill, you know, anywhere in the state just because of the amount of trail cameras you got. And it's, you know, it's just one of those things where I'm trying to learn for myself, and it isn't about like the killing. It's about the learning, and it's about the experience. But, you know, you've always been like the first one to say, hey, like anytime, just let me know. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome, man.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, I forgot. I know that you said you want to fly under the radar, blah 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 blah, but you've got it's pretty likely that you're gonna hunt. You're planning on hunting Iowa this year. Like, so how do you plan for out of state hunts? Like from like a scouting, like is it all e-scouting? Are you going to go out there and do boots on the ground and then figure it out from there? Like,
so my plan is I'm going to go out there in probably like August, maybe at some point. And I'm not really going to do too much boots on the ground because how things change, but I'm going to go do and use my glassing like technique and try to locate where there could be possibly some big deer to hunt. So, like, it's just knowing that they're there in the area, so I'm not wasting my time on pieces that might not have anything at all, or not anything I would like to shoot at least. And I mean, like, it is Iowa, so, like, there's a lot of deer, but, like, they're just not going to, like, you ain't going to find a 150-inch deer behind every corner, I guess, if that makes any sense.
I mean, I feel like if I can go and just wander into Kansas and kill a Pope and Young buck, someone who knows what they're doing can go has a higher likelihood of finding a 150 around every corner than, you know, just the average guy going there.
But I mean, like, I do have a goal. I mean, I want to go there and try to shoot something unbelievable, or find something unbelievable if I can, or something like I don't think I could ever shoot anywhere else. And I mean, like, I guess if I lose my job because of it, it is what it is, but I'm not going to give up until I get one.
So then from that perspective, like how, when is the season and like, when do you plan on going out there?
So they start October 1st, just like us. And then I'm going to go as soon as possible.
Okay. So you're not like saying, okay, I wanted to go for the rut or anything like that.
Nope. I'm going to go as fast and as soon as possible until I kill one.
Okay.
So like probably the first 2 days of the season I'll be here, but then I'm going to be in Iowa for 5 days. And then I'll come back for like 5 or 6 days, and I'll go back for another 5 or 6 days. It also matters like what the weather's doing too. If the weather's like really crazy or like over 100 degrees or raining like complete downpour, I might actually go out there in a complete rain downpour for a week and scout and just scout. Who cares? I mean, like, I've waited too long to go to Iowa to burn the tag, to not care, to where like, I don't care if I shoot a big buck in Michigan next year. I just want to shoot a really big one there because it's like my chance to do it.
And that makes sense. What are the rules for Iowa and trail cameras?
I haven't really looked into it because they changed that law, but like, I don't really know. And I don't want to go there and run cameras really. I really want to go there and just hunt and like hunt it up. Like, I don't want any other distractions, as like, if I was going to run cameras, I should have done it 5 years ago kind of deal.
Okay. And I guess that makes sense, but I guess I was more thinking of like maybe the reason that you were going down there in October was like, if you see something in August, and so you know that there's something that you want to kill in that area, to be able to go down there right at the beginning of the season, you know, believing that it's still going to be alive, and then maybe like cameras to verify like what you're thinking. But that was my thought process in it anyway.
The biggest thing about going down there in October, if I got to walk around a bit, I'll walk around a little bit until I figure out what the deer are doing. I don't care. It's going to be scout my ass off until I find him. Basically, that's what's going to end up happening.
And so can you clarify that? I think I can like visualize like what's going on, because I feel like that's what I did in Kansas. But like, what do you mean when you say walk around until you see what the deer are doing?
Like, I mean, so like it matters like the areas I hunt. So like some areas do have hiking trails. Like, what hurt would it be for me to go walk the hiking trail and see what I can find for a deer sign? I mean, that doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't hurt the deer. Or if I like look on a map and there's like a monster river system, but it's got like some height to it on one side. Well, I'm going to go to that heighted side and glass that whole river bottom for the whole afternoon. And I mean, I might take my bow with me because like, you never know. I could spot one and try to get on him, or I spot one and he's on the other side, but I can figure out what they're all doing too. He's still like in mid-October, there's still food. Like that's all they really care about. What are they doing as their normal food still? And then, I mean, I'm assuming there's a lot of deer there. So it's going to be like, it's just going to be a jungle. I just got to figure out where the bigger deer are going to want to be, or where they feel safe, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
It's kind of like, I just want to put my eyes on them, even if I got to jump the damn thing.
Yeah. And you know, that it's very reminiscent of like, just what comes to mind is like Johnny Stewart, just like essentially literally running around in the woods until he finds a deer that he wants to shoot, or, you know, gets to where he's bumping deer consistently and he's saying, okay, well, this is where the deer are.
I mean, like, you never know. I could show up there, go to a spot I've been looking at. I seen big deer around there, walk right around the corner and find the biggest scrape in my whole entire life and sit there and shoot one in the first 5 minutes. You never know. Or I might go there and I might spend 2 months trying to kill a big one. I mean, you never know. It's the game of chess, I guess, when it comes to it. But I'm going to put all my time and all my marbles, eggs, everything I got in that basket to try to kill a big one down there.
Yeah. Well, I hope it doesn't take 2 months, and I can't wait to kind of
I
follow
hope it
along
doesn't either.
and hear the story, man. But yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. So I appreciate you coming on here and chatting with me tonight. And I'll have to get with you for some scouting here coming up. So thanks again.
Oh yeah,
man.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
Hit the road for fun and heartwarming fishing adventures with the Real American Road Trip.
I just want to hook up one time. I just need to hook up one time.
Catch the Waypoint Original Series every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the Waypoint TV channel. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment.
I did get a bite. I have gotten a bite. I did feel it.
Gear up for the hunt and learn from the best with Deer and Deer Hunting Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV. Tune in every week for expert hunting tips and unforgettable moments in the field. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment.